Hey everybody, I'm Andres.
I'm Scott.
And I'm Abe.
What? Why are you?
You guys are here.
Yes, we're real people.
Wow.
Not just on the
I feel
screen.
like I haven't been in the same room with you guys in like 5 years.
I mean, we try to avoid it, but
Yeah.
for some reason we're filming these things now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
You guys smell a lot worse than I thought.
than you thought? You
Yeah.
thought we looked like we
Yeah.
smell really good.
It's worse than I thought.
It's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we
nice
have
setup.
like equipment, look, it's
Yeah.
a microphone.
It's a whole setup.
Like,
Yeah, and we're excited to start our fifth go at this, which is pretty cool.
Season 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Good
So yeah,
world.
if you're listening to this, you can watch us on YouTube now. And you can smash the subscribe button. That's me smashing the subscribe button.
We have
You just went for it.
We have a good interview today. We're interviewing Arlene Sierra, who's going to be joining us for our Classical 3, our third Classical Series concert
Absolutely.
in October. And she talks a little bit about herself and her piece. Really cool interview.
I love interviewing composers.
Yeah.
Like a completely different perspective that you don't usually hear from. Most of the composers whose music we play are dead. And so the fact that you can get that perspective from somebody in this interview and live when she comes to Detroit
Right.
is...
Yeah, and to kind of hear her process
Yeah.
for putting pieces together and
Oh, yeah.
birds.
Birds are involved.
They are.
Birds are involved.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
And this is the first podcast of a new orchestra season. So we got a lot of great music coming up. We've got a lot happening at the DSO. So check out
it'll be a fun
DSO.org.
season for the DSO and for us. We'll have a lot to talk about.
But first, it's game time. Abe's favorite thing to do is lose lose the trivia games. And I have...
Speaking of losing games, Sam just beat me at checkers for the first time.
I mean...
Yeah. It's starting.
I'm not surprised.
How old is Sam now?
4.5.
It's a long life of losing, man.
Now, did he just like do one of those big sweeping moves where he does the big circles?
Yeah.
And then he's like triple king me.
Exactly. Quintuple jump. You know,
Yeah.
you got it.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I usually win checkers.
Yeah.
And then flip the table over and just run around.
That's just what I did in anger after he won.
Are you just stalling because you don't want to play the game?
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's talk about something else.
The game is Terms of Infirement, where I have some musical terms that I looked up in a musical dictionary. There are such things. And there's a real answer. I made up an answer, and I got an answer from one of the two of you that I'm not asking the question to. So how you get a point? You either get the right answer, or your answer gets chosen. So I can still get points even though I'm asking all the questions. It's wonderful.
You rigged it so you could win.
I could win. I rigged it. Yes. If you pick my answers only.
Yeah.
Okay. First question goes to Abe.
Okay.
The word is Botto. Botto. And the definitions are the tolling of a bell,
Mm-hmm.
making a low growling sound, or when an opera singer uses non-pitched speech during a song.
During a song. Not sure. I think that gives it away as not the right answer, right? Because an opera singer sings an aria, right?
Well, an opera singer could sing songs.
They could. That's true. I don't know. I'm going to go with the... what was the second one?
Making a low growling sound.
Yeah, let's go with that.
All right, that is 1 point for me.
Yes. I know the answers, and so I knew this choosing yours. Oh.
Yeah, the correct answer is the tolling of a bell.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. I think all of them are Italian, this version of Terms of Infirment, which is exciting. Andres.
So serious.
I just have to pronounce this word right.
We need Yoder here to...
Yeah, actually, yes. Okay, the word is...
Just have a floating out our head.
It's Padiglione.
Ah,
Padiglione.
okay.
Padiglione. The definitions. A musical term describing a Paddington the Bear type musical expression.
That's got to be yours. Oh my God.
How could you tell?
Definition number 2. A soft, unaccented attack.
Okay.
Definition number 3. The bell of a horn.
It's 50-50, man.
Yeah, I'll say the second one.
A soft, unaccented attack.
Yeah.
That is 2 points for me. It is the bell of a horn.
Because I thought 2
Padiglione.
bells, like 2 bells in a row.
Tolling of a bell and the bell of a horn. I know.
We're giving it to him.
I mean, and these are in like every piece we play. It's just written.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Back to you, Abe.
Okay.
I saw the glee in your face when I chose your answer.
It's just the thrill of winning this game that I designed and created and made up all the questions.
And
It's
rigged.
just
No.
unbelievable. And rigged, yes.
Yeah.
All right. The word is rabia. Rabbia.
Okay.
Rabia. When a musical gesture has forward momentum,
Okay.
rage or fury, or to produce a sound by rubbing.
I would have guessed Andres to make something up about rabbis on that one.
I was thinking about it. I was actually thinking about it.
Especially since we just had Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to go with the first one.
When a musical gesture has forward momentum. That is Andres.
All right. There we go.
It is rage or fury.
Okay.
So I think rabid.
Similar though.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. You didn't go with the rubbing one.
No.
That was
I
almost.
figured that was yours. And
Really?
I
You
was,
thought
I was
so?
going with 50-50 for the other two.
Oh.
Yeah.
Paddington, and the rubbing, and we're starting to get to know each other.
All right. So Andres, if you guess the right
We tie.
answer, we tie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the last question. Stinguendo. Is it dying away or becoming extinct? Is it a biting, nasal sounding mute? Or is it increasingly playing with more sting? The term was coined by Stuart Copeland, the drummer in The Police, which featured the artist known as Sting.
Oh my God.
I wonder
literally
whose
heard him
definition
asking
that
about
was.
The Police like 2 minutes before this. Okay. Thank you, Abe.
You're welcome.
Wait,
This is why you're not good at games.
Oh, man. I also just can't keep it straight.
what's
At
the
least
first,
yours
what's
is
the
a little
first
bit
one
answer.
again? What was
The
it?
first
It's a
one,
great
dying
answer.
away, becoming extinct. Second one is a biting, nasal sounding mute.
I think
I'll
it's the
say the
third
first one.
First one, dying away, becoming extinct.
It's yours.
You tied.
Oh, I tied. Yeah!
Tied. Oh,
Awesome.
nice work.
That's
I don't
only
have a
the third one.
tiebreaker. We'll
That's
have
only
It's
to
the third one.
when we play your game next time. We'll have to do a tiebreaker.
Yeah, exactly. That's what people listen for.
All right. So with that, shall we get to the interview?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here's Arlene Sierra.
Well, Arlene Sierra, thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to see you and have you on the show.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, welcome to Between Two Stands. We have one question that we often ask our guests. This is the first question, and it is, what's on your stand right now? So what are you working on?
I'm finishing up edits for my most recent piano piece, which is slightly related to the piece you guys are going to be playing, which is the piano piece is called Birds and Insects, and it's book 3. I've written 2 others. And with Bridge Records, we're recording all 3 books for a new disc, which will be out next year. So one of the things I love about composing is that I can go from writing for full orchestra to writing for piano to writing for quartets or writing for voices. So yeah, after writing a lot of orchestral music over the last couple of years, I'm now finishing up this kind of big piano piece, which is fun.
It's awesome. is you mentioned birds and insects. Is this like a messiaen type thing where you have like an affinity towards like this type of like like certain animals and you want to like compose for them, or like what's the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, it's funny. I think when I was starting out and thinking about using birdsong, this specter of Messiaen was kind of looming over,
I
and
can imagine.
I had to kind of steel myself to answer the question every time.
Yeah.
But it's of course natural to ask because you know the massive 20th century figure always associated with birds, even though he wrote lots of things that had nothing to do with birds.
Oh yeah.
And I started my career, at the end of the 20th century, and I was very very aware of Messiaen and everything he did. But I also, I loved the birds in Daphnis and Chloe, and the birds in Beethoven's Pastoral, and the birds in Rameau's, pieces
Yeah.
for harpsichord. So, there's an incredible history of composers using birdsong. And I think becoming more and more aware of that as a composer starting out made me feel a little braver about Messiaen questions.
Yeah.
But it's funny because Messiaen visited Yale maybe decade or two before I was a student there, and my old professor Martin Bresig loved to tell us, still loves, I should say, to tell a story about I can't remember who was analyzing the piece of Messiaen, but they were trying to explain why there's a sudden G major appearance that's not connected to anything else, and Messiaen apparently interrupted this lecture to say, that's not the reason. The reason is because the bluebird flew in at that moment. As very famously synesthetic associations with birds. The bird was the right color and the harmony was the right color, and bam, there you go.
Wow.
And that is not the way I compose at all. For me, the bird songs are they're kind of building blocks for pieces. So it's lovely to hear a bird song, and they're kind of, in those old pieces I mentioned before by other composers, they're kind of presented as these beautiful found objects that show up in a musical texture. But my way of composing and the way that I use bird song is really, they're almost like Lego pieces that are used to build the piece. So in a way, the whole piece is bird song, and in a way, the piece is not bird song because it's not presented in that kind of pictorial way of here's the bird.
So for our audience that might not have heard your music before, knowing that it's about birds, they might miss a lot if they're searching for that particular bird song. Then is that accurate to say?
So I think you can still hear it, but it's more like a motif,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. So if you think of a really simple motif, going back to Beethoven, instead of that, in my case, it would be 4 or 5 notes of a bird song. So transcriptions that I've done myself, with inflections or little kind of articulations and things that make it sound like a bird, but then are developed in a way that's more structural, more rhythmic, less kind of arioso, like you would expect a bird song to be presented in old music.
How do you pick the 4 notes, or or however many
or
there
the bird,
are?
like how do you pick the bird? Like,
are you in nature recording like some other composers have? Do you look it up, or is it sort of a mixture, or what's your process like?
Yeah, well, that was the funny thing too, because I when I started using bird songs, I felt a little guilty because, of course, like everybody now, I grew up in the internet age, and any bird song is there.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you know, you can hear the blackbirds in New York or in France or in Lithuania, but the click of a button. So I felt a little
The YouTube bird watcher.
right, and these incredible databases. There's a Cornell ornithology database, and Xenocanto is another one. They're massive.
Mhm.
So you can hear literally every bird that's ever been recorded, this way, and by people who unlike me, are morning people who are out in the
Yeah.
field, you know. So I kind of felt a little guilty that I was really finding my musical objects in this very not natural way.
Yeah.
But I have a friend who's a musicologist who studies French music, and she told me, don't worry about that, Arlene, because in Catalogue d'Oiseaux, Messiaen actually uses each bird song in the order that it appears on an LP.
Oh. That was before someone could like get him for plagiarizing or something.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know who released the LP. Maybe they should sue Messiaen.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, I have the same kind of thought. I also think you should not feel bad about that. For one thing, I'm a teacher, and I'm often telling my students, like, go out there, find what's out there. It's never been easier to find more recordings of different pieces and players and performers putting their stuff out. And it seems like the people wanting to take advantage of that are fewer. The challenge of going out and finding it on your own might have been more appealing to some.
Yeah,
than
finding that one LP in the public library in a random town.
That's a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
And now it's more easily accessible for those that choose to do it, which is, I think is great.
Arlene, I just made me think. I maybe a year or two ago, I had some starlings that were trapped in my roof, and it was one of the most annoying. Like, it made me crazy. Like, and I thought horrible thoughts, and they finally flew away. But anytime I hear a starling, it there's a visceral reaction. So, do you have any pieces about starlings at all?
It's safe this time.
Okay, cool, yeah.
I really hope there's nothing in my piece that reminds you of.
Yeah. You'll see me like just start rocking back and forth and going back to a dark place.
There's a step in there,
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to the Kiskadee piece. Can you tell us something about that piece for people who will be listening to it for the first time, and people, maybe someone going to the symphony for the first time hearing that piece? What's something that you would tell them to listen for?
Well, the main call of the Kiskadee opens the piece in the most obvious way possible. So it has this. It's actually 4 or 5 notes, depending what you're counting in there. So what got me interested in this particular bird call is that it's really loud and sort of raucous. Not as bad as starlings, maybe. It's really kind of boisterous, and it kind of inspired me because this piece is meant to be a concert opening kind of piece, and so rather than being a fanfare, it's kind of this really loud bird call. But also, what I was interested in when I was putting the piece together was the background of the recording of the bird call has these crickets that are kind of calling, and they're all singing or scraping, or whatever, however you want to describe crickets doing, a high C. So there's this kind of background of high kind of pitch material that's very simple, over which there's this big fanfare bird call. So that's kind of the opening of the piece, and it's really kind of loud and rhythmic and full of energy, and yeah, it's sort of it's meant to be fun, but not in a very. I mean, I guess the way I like to think of it is using things from nature in a kind of objective way. 'Cause birds are not us, and we are not birds, and they sort of call and declare their territory, and they're not singing about the beauty of nature the way that maybe Beethoven thought they were. They're just saying, "I'm here,"
Right. Or trying to get a mate, which whatever that entails.
Right. It's nothing. It's not particularly romantic for us, but it's a kind of territorial thing, but it's also a kind of crazy energy thing because birds have so much energy. You know, they have this kind of metabolism that's like 100 times faster than ours. So I'm kind of thinking of that in terms of the way that the music moves and the way that the energy of the piece starts out. It's an 8-9 minute piece, so it has a kind of arc. It's not just that. There's also an environment. There's also kind of a displacement where a different bird call kind of takes over because the Kiskadee is very loud and raucous, but it actually gets bullied out of its nest by another bird called the troupial, so that sort of comes in and takes over. And then there is some repose in the music before the Kiskadee kind of comes back and takes its territory back. So it has a musical shape and a musical argument, but it also has this kind of, as I was saying, a sort of really raucous fanfare opening.
It sounds like there's a story too. Two
Kind of,
birds vying for
yeah.
territory.
Well, so
That's cool.
were you inspired by something you heard or you saw for this particular story with the music, or is this something that you kind of came up with on your own?
Well, I think I'm interested in sort of tendencies in animal behavior and kind of environments of in this case these two different birds. But it's not a story in a kind of Mickey Mousing film scoring way. You
Right.
don't hear the Kiskadee flies in and then it flaps and then it
Right.
It's not that kind of literal narrative at
Right.
all. Sort of you're in this environment, there are these certain kinds of bird calls, and then things change in that environment.
Really interesting.
So I'm very interested in a musical structure that has a sense of inevitability, and there's a shape to the piece that I hope isn't going to be particularly predictable or usual, but at the same time it feels like it has to happen that way. So by putting together these different birdsong motifs and these kind of bigger environments with kind of cricket sounds and rhythmic sounds, hopefully it just, for some it'll be a narrative, for others maybe it'll just be a kind of interesting sonic experience, and maybe for others it'll be really groovy and strange and fun. So it's not really meant to be limited to a kind of pictorial story.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've heard from some composers, or I've read how the process can be a collective experience for some, where they'll often like jam with other musicians in a sense, and then write down little things that they've done. Do you ever collaborate and like run ideas off of each other, or is it more a solo procedure for you?
I really think a lot about time. Every piece I write is kind of in dialogue with the last piece and the next piece and the piece that I wrote, a decade ago, a piece I wrote, 5 years before that one. So in a way, this piece was in a dialogue with the last two concert opener pieces that I've written in my catalog. So sort of my first big orchestral piece was a 10-minute concert opener. That was the first time I'd ever heard my piece played by an orchestra. And then about 10 years after that, I wrote another kind of big concert opener piece, which had a lot of performances. Both these pieces have been recorded. So when I was asked to write a new concert opener piece, it was sort of, how am I going to do something new? To do. And also, I've just finished two big symphonic pieces over the last 5 years or so. So I've gotten used to thinking on a really big scale with the orchestra, and then to think about a concert opener again was a fun and strange gear change. So I would say that my pieces are in dialogue with those experiences, with those earlier pieces. But also, of course, what I've been so fortunate to learn about working with different orchestras. I was in residence with the Utah Symphony for my last big symphonic piece, which is called Bird Symphony, by the way. So there's bird things been happening. But I worked with the BBC Philharmonic for my first symphonic piece, which was called Nature Symphony, and that was about 5-6 years ago now. So, and I've worked with a bunch of other orchestras in different contexts. So, thinking about what orchestras can do and, different sections and how they connect to each other. I mean, I've always been in love with the orchestra, but I think that's really the collaboration for me, is my really fantastic experiences working with orchestras and thinking about what they can do and kind of pushing what I've done before and making it new again, and just keeping it growing and evolving.
It's awesome. I was just thinking, like, I want to ask you back to like the birds and nature. Like, did your love for nature kind of inspire music, or is your musical path making you appreciate nature, or have they both been kind of hand in hand?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I mean, the first orchestral piece I wrote was about ancient ideas of weather patterns. There's this Roman treatise called the 10 Books of Architecture, where the architect is describing what he thinks the weather does, and he's totally wrong.
That's like every weatherman.
Yeah, right. But I just love that idea of sort of this faux science from a couple thousand years ago, where they were so sure that they knew that the weather comes. It was a fun idea. The weather comes from this big boiling mass of ocean somewhere out there, like before you fall off the cliff and fall off the edge.
Yeah, right.
But I just love this pictorial scientific idea that was wrong, and that kind of inspired my first orchestral piece. And so it was really about coming up with processes, like thinking about different processes in music. So from that piece, then I got interested in kind of strategic processes in game theory, and kind of I started reading a lot of Sun Tzu and kind of military strategy. And I love writing pieces based on sort of, are the strings going to beat out the winds, like who's going to be able to hold the chord longer and stuff. So so I wrote a piece for the New York Philharmonic called Game of Attrition, where the different parts of the orchestra and different soloists who are on different instruments but the same register, for example, cello versus something like that, or pitted against each other. So that sense of process, sort of natural process, kind of kept continuing until it became more about nature, kind of more directly. And so kind of quasi-scientific views of nature, ways of things beating each other out, or survival of the fittest. And so while working in that way from piece to piece, the birds started to get more relevant. Like I started to, my first set of birds and insects piano pieces, those started off as little kind of uses of ciphers and little quotations or dictations of birdsong. And as I kept writing these little piano pieces, I realized that they were really seeds for bigger statements. So I started orchestrating ideas from the piano pieces. And that's how I ended up doing this sort of set of 2 symphonies, and now the Kiskadee piece that sort of came out of piano pieces, but with this kind of process idea, or natural process.
It's awesome.
Are you going to be coming to Detroit? Are you going to see the piece when we perform it?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Nice. Have you been here before?
For anything.
Have you been here before?
Well, yeah, I did my doctorate at Ann Arbor.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, it's old stomping grounds.
Yeah. So I lived in Ann Arbor for 3 years, and did my doctoral coursework there before moving to Europe. So, and it's so great. The week that I'm working with you guys, I'm going to be doing a composition seminar in my old school.
Oh, amazing.
That's great.
Working with the chamber ensemble there as well, like right after you guys. So it's going to be an amazing week when I'm there with you, and then going to Ann Arbor too. So a lot of old connections. But to hear the DSO again live, I mean, I haven't been to the area since I was a student, so it's really going to be fabulous.
Oh yeah.
Can't wait to have you. We wanted to just kind of wrap up the interview, just kind of see what your inspirations were, and we just wanted to ask you what the most underrated composer you think is, and what the most overrated composer is, in your opinion.
Yes.
Yeah,
No
please.
pressure.
Yeah.
I better stick with dead people. I really
That's how, I mean, you don't have to. We
You know,
can
yeah.
have some drama on this show. We'll get famous.
And then we can get them on next time and see what they think.
got me in trouble as a student at Ann Arbor. I got to be careful. Oh, wow. Let's see. Well, it's kind of easy in a way because in terms of underrated, you could say all the women composers, like ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Is there one in particular that like you find yourself going back to for inspiration or just that stands out to you that should have more of a spotlight?
There are several, but top of my list is Betsy Jolis, who's a French American composer. I think she's 96 years old now.
Wow.
She was a guest composer when I was studying at Yale for my master's degree, and then I went to the Conservatoire Américain at Fontainebleau to study with her a bit. And at the time, she really scared me because I was, barely out of my teens, and here was this woman who was so powerful, and she wrote this incredible opera about the discovery of Troy, and lots of orchestral music and beautiful vocal music. So she's had an incredible career, and yet she's been writing some recent pieces for the London Symphony Orchestra, and some of the press here in London wrote about her as an unknown, like a completely.
Oh man. Yeah. 96 years old. And, yeah.
And she's not. I mean, she's had incredible commissions. I was just talking to a friend who's in arts management who was saying, we're going to do something for Betsy at the proms, and I said, well, you should stop commission. I mean, she loves commissions and she's working hard. So she's getting more commissions right now than she had for years before. And I was saying, I'm sure there are lots of pieces from before that she hasn't heard good performances of that she would love to have done, or maybe a concert performance of that opera, or something like that. And I think this happens a lot in, not just the women composers, where a composer gets rediscovered when they're very elderly.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, write us pieces, and they just ignore the whole catalog.
Right. Absolutely.
So I love that she's getting more attention again. But, when I met her, 25 years ago, I knew her as a major force in the field, particularly in France, obviously, but in the States too. She's a dual citizen. But you see this, that, it's happened through history that, there's a good number of women composers who've done really, really well. And then suddenly the work is just sort of forgotten.
Yeah.
So yeah, Betsy Jolis, please, everybody.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
I'll definitely look. I would like to hear her music too. I don't know. I don't know much of her stuff at all. So
Me either. Yeah.
I mean, the word that stood out just now was spotlight, and I think that when you're talking about female composers in general, that spotlight was just never put.
Yeah.
For the obvious, very blatant misogynist reasons,
Yeah.
but hopefully, that's changing, and we can be part of that change.
Yeah. Be great.
Well, hey, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate having you on and you taking the time, to be on the show with us. It was really nice talking to you.
Can't wait to see you here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
looking forward to
I'll see
working
you
with
guys
you.
soon. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, us too. Can't wait to hear the piece too.
All right, so that's our show. But a huge thank you to Arlene Sierra. It was great having her. That was fun interview.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And thanks to you guys for being you.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand why you were thanking me.
Yeah.
But yeah, join us next time. Between
Yeah.
Two Stands, Classical
Smash
Musicians
the YouTube
Podcast.
subscribe button.
Yeah, smash subscribe.
Yeah.